If you were to enter the housing market for the first time in New York City and sought to buy a one-bedroom condo, could you afford it? How about downtown Salt Lake City? Hi, welcome to the County Seat today. I'm Chad Booth. Today our topic is going to focus on the cost of housing and its relationship to a healthy community. What responsibilities do counties and the state have to assure affordable housing without infringing on the property rights of individuals? It is complex. Understanding it is the goal today on the County Seat, and we will start with an entry-level look in the basics. Here's Maggie Kay.
Homer and Housley are two millennials. Neither one lives in poverty. Both of them have a job. Housley works for a federal agency in Moab. He works year-round and makes about $46,000. Homer, on the other hand, is a warehouse manager in Davis County with a college degree, a wife with a part-time job, and two lovely children. Combined, Homer and wife make about $76,000 per year. So who do you think is most likely to not be able to afford a home, Homer or Housley? The answer is neither one of them. And how can that be? Well, let's take a look. The rule of thumb is that to live securely, housing should not be above 30% of your take-home pay. If your housing cost exceeds 50% of your take-home pay, you are considered to be at high risk of losing your home. With Homer's family income of about $75,000, they bring home around $4,100 per month. The median cost of a house in Davis County was recently calculated to be $396,700. Based on a 30-year mortgage at 4.5% and with insurance and taxes, their payment would be $2,144 per month, or about 52% of their take-home pay. Well, that's not good. Granted, the home price I mentioned was the median, and there are homes for less than that. But the higher the median goes, the fewer homes it leaves in the price range Homer could afford, which is about $205,000. And he has to compete for those remaining properties. Housley fares even worse. The median home price in Grand County is $320,000, which equals a monthly payment of $1,827.33, which ends up being 63% of his take-home pay. This happens regardless of the size of town you live in, when the demand for housing outstrips supply. When economies boom, more houses are needed, and if the need can't be filled, then the price goes up. If the economy and job demand gets too far in front of housing, jobs won't get filled because people can't live nearby. Eventually, new businesses won't move there, and existing businesses will move or close. The tax base will start to drop. Local governments won't be able to cover the cost of maintaining the infrastructure they created, and the community will start to fall apart, causing the people who still live there to move away. And that will lead to a loss of value of the homes, and eventually the community becomes blighted. Whether it's a tourism town or the Wasatch Front, housing costs are pricing average young people like me out of the market. Where I live and work, a house within 5 miles of my job would cost almost 65% of my paycheck. Currently, Salt Lake City is ranked as the third most expensive city for housing, behind San Jose, California, and Seattle, Washington. And don't think that just because you're renting and not buying that you are spared this effect. Housing shortages push more people into the rental market, increasing those costs too. Believe me, I know. So what do we do about it? It will most likely require public policy that respects private property rights and the ability to gain on your investment while slowing the booms and busts, so that there is a home for every wage bracket in a healthy, diverse community. It may require a mix of deed restrictions and financial incentives to get people to build, expecting less return in exchange for other benefits. What will that eventually look like? I don't know, but we have some experts who can give us an idea, and they'll be coming up next in our in-depth discussion. For the County Seat, I'm Maggie Kay.
$149 million years in the making, dinosaurs once roamed this land. Now they're found at the Dinosaur National Monument. Let's take you beyond the bones. We call it Dinosaur Land. You'll find it offers adventures and sights not seen anywhere else in the world. Come to Dinosaur Land, Vernal, Utah. You'll want to stay forever. The dinosaurs did.
There's more to life than the 9 to 5. There's more to experience than rush hour traffic. And there's more to see than the view from your window. In Davis County, we have over 500 miles of trails to satisfy the most avid bikers and hikers, taking you beyond the ordinary and into a natural world. Pick up your free Trails and Bikeways maps at any bike shop or city office in Davis County and discover what you've been missing. Davis County, Utah. Eat, stay, play. Learn more at playindavis.com.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking about affordable housing across the state. This is the discussion part of the show. We hope you're up to speed on how broad this problem actually is, and with Utah being one of the more expensive places to buy houses in the country right now, it's time for a discussion. Joining us for our conversation, Tara Rollins, who is the Executive Director of the Utah Housing Coalition, and from Grand County, to show that this problem is statewide, Vice Chair of the Grand County Council, Curtis Wells. Thanks you for joining us. Curtis, thanks for making a long trip up here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Okay, let's talk about how much of the swath of the income bracket housing affects. Obviously, you've got super low income housing, which most people think of as subsidies and assistance and city reimbursed housing. But how broad is it actually?
Well, when you think about extremely low-income people, that is somebody who's making a little less than $12 an hour. And that's what we're talking with service jobs. We have a lot of jobs at that level. So that is 30% of area median income. So that's not even talking about people that are on disability. So it's a huge problem.
So how far up that payment ladder? Obviously, we saw some examples of using median salaries in different places like Grand County, where you're about $300,000, you're almost $400,000 in Davis County as your median. And of course, as the median rises, the available houses at the bottom end of that bracket starts to shrink too. Is it literally a problem that could affect prosperity?
Absolutely. One of the biggest issues is that, the ability to put units on the ground is here and our growth is here. And so we're not keeping up with our growth that we have coming into our state and as well as keeping up with the growth that comes from our state. And so that's really hurting the market. I think about, areas like yours and the expense of construction and the ability to get people to actually work in your area just drives the cost up even more. And so not having the right inventory for the incomes that we have in our state is a huge issue.
So how big of a problem are you currently having? Because I imagine that Escalante is not too far behind you because they've become a recreation center and that places that rely heavily on tourism like Grand County has now become, even San Juan County is going to have this problem. Are you actually not able to expand business because you can't get seasonal employees?
It's a primary hurdle for businesses and for the county. Larger than 80% of our economy is tourism, and where supply is not keeping up with demand, it's creating a lot of issues. The average income in Grand County for a household is $56,000. The average median sales price for a home is $329,000. That was in 2017. And so the problem is that the gap is actually widening. Growth is not keeping up, in terms of inventory with the need for employees and workforce housing.
So who's buying all the houses?
Well, in Moab and in Grand County, it's second homeowners, vacation homes. On the topper end of the scale, And that's where the attention and the demand is for construction companies and investment in Moab. And so all the new growth and supply and housing is not for the working class people.
So eventually all the people who come to recreate are going to price the people that make that possible out of the marketplace, and then they can't do any of the fun stuff they like. Then what happens?
Well, it's a very serious problem, because what we're talking about is upward mobility. You know, for most Americans, their opportunity to climb the economic ladder is equity in a home. And if we can't bridge that gap, you know, you become like other similar tourist economies where you have a transient workforce and the folks that they serve, and it becomes a hollow community without that healthy workforce in the core.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think another issue is that, you know, I really feel the state needs to do better preparation, because we spend $22 million on advertising for tourism. And so that's to bring people to our state. But yet we're not working on the infrastructure that is needed to make sure that people have a good time. And I think sometimes we're not asking the right questions. You know, whose bottom lines are gonna hurt if we don't have housing? Well, right now, I bet you your bike shops down there do not have the bike mechanics that are needed to be able to rent the bikes on a consistent basis. Well, that's going to hurt some of the bigger companies that their bikes are down there. So like Trek, Cannondale, look at the Razor, look at the four-wheel drive. I mean, all those, they need the support system. So why aren't we asking the question, how can you partner with us to make sure our community is whole and your bottom line is strong too?
Yeah, so you know, one of the biggest issues here, at least in Grant County, is we're roughly 95% public land. And so there really is a limited amount of developable land within the Moab Valley. And so the businesses, you know, the private sector, they're going to react and respond and provide housing for their employees when they have to. And that's happening in Moab. We're seeing that. It's still not going to mitigate the solution for the entire community. And so we're in an exercise now, we're exploring what options do we have as a public sector, as a community, to help mitigate the problem.
So the average person would drive into Moab and they'd look at the area north of the airport and they say, geez, there's all kinds of land out here. Why can't you build a subdivision out here? You're saying that land's not available.
Correct. Yeah, that's federal land, you know, some Sitla land, but primarily it's federal land, public land.
Do you think that the answer is getting provisions to the BLM to start disposing of land again?
Well, I would absolutely be in favor of that, to create some social utility, you know, on the land for the community, because this housing issue affects so many different, you know, elements of our community. I would be in favor of that, absolutely.
So that doesn't solve a problem with Davis County, who has maybe that much BLM land in it. What do you do along the Wasatch Front?
I think when once again, I'm going to go back to my example of, you know, Cannondale. I mean, they're not going to build the housing. They're going to help through their foundations. Most corporations have a foundation that they can donate to. And so if we were to set up something in the state to help facilitate that, like the Only Walker Housing Loan Fund could help developers down in Moab, but it will come through like Cannondale or anything. But Davis County is the same thing. You got to look at what their assets are up there. You know, who are the corporations? Where are the jobs? You know, and then go and have the conversation. I think one of the items that we don't talk about is that we are very heavily with education as well. And so we have universities that are straining our housing because they don't have student housing. And you look at the example of what's happening down in his area, you know, there's a campus going in, and how much housing is being planned by that university to make that happen.
But doesn't this work better? I mean, asking companies to create a foundation to
No,
support.
they have foundations.
Yeah, but I mean, asking companies to contribute to a fund just so that people can buy more expensive housing, that's one side of the policy. But you know, I've heard people talking about, you know, deed restrictions and price controls and things like that. How do you incentivize that within a free enterprise system and keep it, you know, help make sure that there's that upward mobile path that you were talking about, Curtis, and still maintain a free enterprise system and give some kind of incentive to builders to start building houses that he's not going to make as much money on, but he's still going to make a profit? What do you do?
Well, there's lots of developers in our state that are doing just that, but it's driven by tax credits. And there's only a limited amount of tax credits that we receive from the IRS, each state. And so how do we supplement that type of incentive, as well as, bonus densities, zoning? I mean, there's some definite things that are being talked about right now that could help that. But right now, the market's not working because of the supply. We can't get units on the ground fast enough. And so when you're looking at supplement and rents, I would be happy as a corporation if I had a foundation to help, bring people to Moab. And if that means, housing people that are going to be the mechanic for the season, and then the next season that housing is going to be available to somebody else, it's the workforce that is important.
Do either one of you think it's going to reach a point where companies are going to start looking at it and saying, I don't want to build here, I don't want to expand here, either in tourism or in some kind of industry, because I'm going to have I won't get an employee base that, short of having to commute 70 miles to get here? I mean, is that a scenario that might work?
Well, one of the concerns that I have, and some of the options that we've laid out and we're looking at, and we've done a Moab area affordable housing plan. Some staff in Grand County has worked very hard on that. The Moab Area Housing Task Force, which is a joint study group between the city and the county. And assured housing policies is something that we're looking at. And really what that is it's a formula, and it's to set a limit where, say, if a hotel or a large business is coming in to open up a hotel or one of these large businesses in the community, that they don't dump those demands on the community, and that there's some assurances that there's going to be a housing component to the development. And my opinion is those can be touchy things, because on one hand, you don't want to create an unhealthy business climate, because developers and business people, they have the luxury of going and developing elsewhere. And so I'm always a fan of the carrot and incentives, and that's what you were alluding to, is what can we do to keep a healthy business climate but incentivize these kinds of developments. And so in Grand County, one of the biggest challenges is that we're relying on a tourism economy, and counties aren't structured to generate revenue from tourism as well as cities. So we do collect a transient room tax. There is a formula that goes back into the promotion of tourism that is important. We don't want to lose our market share. We're proud of what we've built, but it creates heavy demands on a county, that's operating through a property tax system. And so, being spread thin, how do we solve these problems? And so one thing that, while we're not cash rich, and we have to our demands for our services are high because we have millions of tourists coming through a small community of less than 10,000 people, what we do own is land. The county owns land. And so something that the Grand County is looking at right now is, if we can close that gap to make a project pencil up by providing the land piece in an equation, how do we structure a public-private partnership with a developer so that those units can come online in the market, and we've done our job to implement that utility for the people.
Well, we've covered a lot here, and we've run out of time, so I'm going to invite you at home to join us on our Facebook page, or more particularly our YouTube channel, because we're going to continue this conversation there for a few more minutes. We thank you for participating. We'll be right back with some closing thoughts here on the county seat in just a minute.
Look south to adventure. Look south to beauty. Look south to San Juan County. Out here, the road goes on forever, and what you'll find will change how you see the world. Climb on your OHV and discover forgotten landscapes and vistas that challenge the imagination. From Blanding and Monticello to the cliff faces of Monument Valley, we're open and ready for you to explore. San Juan County, Utah's canyon country.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high, and the stars come out at night. Oh, there ain't nothing like being raised in the basin with a Ute reservation, skiing starvation, that Duchesne County life.
The Utah Farm Bureau began as a collection of farmers supporting each other to raise the food we enjoy. Today, Farm Bureau membership encompasses everyone, whether ranchers, growers, or just everyday folks like you and me. Members enjoy discounts on items like vehicles and ATVs, or insurance that's very affordable. You don't have to be a farmer to join, and dues are small, but together we make a big difference in keeping our food supply local and abundant. Join Utah Farm Bureau.
Welcome back to the county seat. Do you remember the question I posed at the first of the show? Could you afford to be a first-time buyer of an average one-bedroom apartment in New York or downtown Salt Lake? Well, if you lived in New York, you would need to make about $120,000 per year to pull it off. I don't even make that much. In downtown Salt Lake, we calculate it to be around $72,000 per year. Now, mind you, that's the high rent district. But that's also the middle ground. Can you imagine the pressure on the lower end of the spectrum, where people with steady but lower paying jobs find themselves unable to afford to live anywhere?
Hey, Jordan.
Hey, Mark, how are you?
Good.
Good to see you again.
You
Come
too.
on in.
Okay.
What's new?
A lot. My name is Mark Appleby. I'm disabled. I've been disabled since 2005 from brain trauma, and I was evicted from an apartment, so I've been having a hard time finding a place to live.
You said that your buddy is going to try and get you the job on base.
Right.
Still, right? When do you
Yes.
think you'll know about that?
By next week.
My name is Jordan Barrett. I'm the housing coordinator at Open Doors, and I'm responsible for administering the housing grants and helping individuals and families experiencing homelessness in the county.
Yes, I like working with Open Doors. Everybody's really kind.
How's the housing search going? Where was the last place you applied?
Um,
Or JR said that he got you a few places to try, right?
yeah, they were all booked.
Okay.
The amount of low-income housing that we have in Davis County is not enough to meet our needs. It's not enough for the working class, let alone people that are living on the streets.
Having to pay $30 every time I apply at an apartment and have them say, no, sorry, and it's a waste of money. For $30, that's a lot of money.
The people in our program to compete with someone that has a stable income and currently has a good standing with previous landlords. Our families that may have prior evictions or sometimes a criminal background have a hard time competing.
What else can we do for you today? Do you want to stop by the food bank?
Yes, I'd really appreciate that. I could use some food.
Okay. We're all wrapped up here. Let's get up there.
Okay. All different kinds of people come to this place to get food from all walks of life. And some people have a lot of struggles they're going through.
And when in reality, low-income housing is housing that's affordable for the working class or the middle class or average families, newlyweds, people that don't have a whole lot of income or that are just starting out on their careers. And so it's not seen as a significant need here in Davis County. Poverty is not seen as it is in other counties.
So I really feel when life is at its darkest that it's going to turn around. And I have faith that things are going to work out eventually.
Our agency is focused on providing a hand up, not a handout, to quote the Director of Community Action, Jean Lopez. And we know that people can't be successful in their fight against poverty if they don't put forth the effort themselves. So we like to hold them accountable and find ways to assist them in the smallest amount possible to get them back on the road towards self-sufficiency.
And with the help of Open Doors, I stay positive with their assistance.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
All local products have a story of magical places, real people, and delicious recipes spanning generations. So go ahead and discover flavors you've never tasted, and friends you never knew you had. Utah's own Discover Local Food.
Welcome back to the county seat. It is very tempting to look at the problem of affordable housing and demand that government just solve it. But that means it either enters the arena of private property and competes directly against us as property owners, or it places restrictions on our ability to do or dispose of our property as we see fit. Mind you, public takings of private property are constitutionally constrained without fair and just compensation. So it would seem that restricting our ability to improve and prosper from our investments, even if it's not a taking of our land and homes, is a basic infringement of rights. Unless, of course, it's voluntary. So it seems to me that incentives to builders rather than government subsidies or requirements and owner-placed deed restrictions regarding future sale costs would at least assist in the problem of keeping more housing affordable, while allowing people to pursue the American dream of home ownership. Remember, there is a stake in this for everyone, because I believe that a community without diversity will eventually decline. Thank you so much for watching today. We would love to hear your thoughts on our topic and hope that you help us spread this conversation by sharing it on social media. Here are the places to look. And we'll see you next week on the County Seat.